keep the government in check. Those are rules that were set up, I think, from Bruce Golding's administration. The PNP did some work on that too. But what it does really is it limits the government and it holds the government towards certain targets. Correct, Scratchy?
Definitely, but whichever government should take power because of an election, that government, a new government should come in place. That government must also follow the physical rules, neighbor. They cannot deviate from it. They must follow it. And a suspension in the physical rules, neighbor, simply means that the reason why the government suspend it is a possibility that, neighbor, that government might see a shortfall in projected revenues and government might increase its spending and government might borrow more. So the government had to suspend the physical rules in order to carry out these things because the physical rules have a certain cap level as to how much the government could borrow and what was estimated to come in. So with the suspension, the government can now go ahead and borrow more. And there's also going to be an increase in the debt to GDP as well, neighbor. That is a big thing of the physical rules, but expected to go to 60%. The suspension right now, it is expected to increase. So yes, neighbor, that's the physical rules.
Thank you. All right. Harry?
Yes, neighbor.
Stay where you are. I'm coming back to you here. Scratchy?
Yes, neighbor.
How you doing, man?
I'm okay, neighbor. Not bad at all. Blessed night, Harry. Blessed night, everyone.
You have to help me buy one generator, Scratchy. You can't. Your pocket still.
So you want a generator? Go on, still have light problem?
Yeah, we still have a little bit of issue. But listen to your Prime Minister, Scratchy. Listen to him.
We will need voices other than the government to explain some of the decisions that we will have to make.
We will need voices other than the government to explain some of the decisions that we will have to make. Scratchy, here is your Prime Minister admitting, Scratchy, that the government alone can't do it. What voices is he talking about that he needs? Okay, Scratchy just got a call, and
yes, neighbor.
Yes, go ahead.
Definitely, neighbor. I think that's what we're talking about, the voices overall, neighbor. Other persons who support what the government is doing, neighbor. Persons who have a voice, otherwise, on platforms like these and otherwise, neighbor. Just come out and also come and help the government in pushing the message forward, not just for a political point, to score political points, neighbor, but from a Jamaican standpoint, neighbor, and a governance standpoint, want to clear up the misinformation. We know that our persons who have sent a lot of things that are being spewed out there in the public, neighbor, are false information. So I think we also have a responsibility to our country, neighbor, to come out and combat these misinformation. Government, as the Prime Minister said, government alone cannot do it, neighbor. All of us have a role to play. We came out, we go out and we voted in the last election, neighbor. So I think we have a right to just come out and try to stop this misinformation as best as possible.
Okay, now the Prime Minister yesterday in the Parliament said this.
And I want it to be clear that I don't need to be threatened. I just want that to be clear. I am not going to accept any threats.
Who is threatening the Prime Minister, Scratchy?
Neighbor, when I listen from the opposition members in the neighbor, the way they make their pronouncement, neighbor, the way they make their requests, it bothers, definitely bothers some form of threat, neighbor, like they're trying to put the Prime Minister in a spot or something where we have to yield to whatever they say. So he's just making it very clear that he's not going to move by any threat or anything like that. And I think the opposition has been doing that ever since the election, neighbor. And I'm glad the Prime Minister really saw it right now and call it out in no less a place at the Parliament and let them know that he will not be moved by any threat, neighbor. The opposition leader in particular, neighbor, based on how we come out, when you notice when he's talking, neighbor, his body language, sometimes, neighbor, body language says a lot, despite what you're saying with words, but your body language also says a lot. If you look at his body language, neighbor, if you look at how he projects his voice and the tone that he uses, it's not coming off in any formal way or like you're making any genuine suggestion. It's like you're holding up me and telling me that this is what I must do and this is what I should do. And the Prime Minister is letting them know that that's not how it goes. Definitely not.
All right. The opposition leader in the parliament yesterday, Scratchy, said that he represents 400,000 people. Let me play him for you.
And damage the country's future. Which is all the more reason why the composition of this recovery authority is important. I wrote to the Prime Minister on the day after the hurricane to suggest the establishment of a task force with broad-based representation, leaders from the private sector and business community, leaders from the churches, leaders from the NGOs, and representatives from the government and the opposition. The concept of NARA is consistent with that. However, I've heard nothing from the Prime Minister as to the role of the opposition in NARA.
No, first of all, Scratchy, why is Mr. Golden revealing to the country in this medium his conversations with the Prime Minister? Why is he doing that?
Again, neighbor, Mr. Golden is just showing us, neighbor, how informal of a leader he is, neighbor, especially to be an opposition leader. And the Prime Minister also made some mention of this, neighbor, that he has no problem dialoguing with the opposition leader, neighbor, but he also wants to know that whatever they speak about, neighbor, some form of privacy or it is held in some form of confidence. And the opposition leader so far has not displayed that, neighbor. And more than one occasion, he has come out and spewed information that the Prime Minister had private dialogue about. Case in point, even the announcement of the $1.5 million to a member of parliament. The opposition leader in his press conference came out and preempt and jumped the Prime Minister and made that announcement. Very, very unfortunate and very disappointing and unprofessional from our opposition leader, neighbor. And this guy really need to get checked, neighbor. I like how the Prime Minister is really checking him right now. This guy need to get checked. Civil society, I'm asking civil society. I need to hear civil society coming on more, neighbor, and talking about the style and the leadership quality and the style that this guy is portraying across our nation, neighbor. It is not sending a good message, and it has the possibility, neighbor, to split the nation, and that is what concerns me the most.
All right. Yes. Then he went on to say this.
We heard it will be broad-based, but there is no inclusivity in the dialogue around how it is to be constituted. And I can hear from the barbs that are flowing from the other side that the likelihood is that we will not be included in it. That is what I'm hearing from the other side in their responses to me. They're sort of a
Scratchy, the opposition's insistence to be included, isn't it true that executive responsibility belongs solely to the government? And there is nothing that says the opposition must be included in anything here.
Definitely not, neighbor. There's nothing in the law that says that the opposition must be a part of this process, the recovery process, neighbor, in terms of how the government do what they're supposed to do, neighbor. The opposition leader, neighbor, again, I tell you that it is based on whatever he think. He's just thinking, all he's seeing right now, neighbor, is just politics, and he just wants to be a part of it, neighbor. And I personally, neighbor, I'm not for any of these bodies or groups, neighbor. What we want right now is to cut out the red tape, neighbor, and fast process. And these groups and these guys are just going to come and add to the red tape, neighbor, and slow down the recovery process. So I'm not really in support of any of these things, neighbor. One of churches and the opposition and the private sector. We don't need that right now, neighbor. We have a government that we elected like 2 months ago, neighbor. And as the Prime Minister said, we need to give the people who we elected a chance, allow the government to work. We must allow the government to carry out its function. The opposition has no executive power. So you being a part of any organization, any group that the Prime Minister or anybody, neighbor, you will just be toothless. You cannot do nothing. You don't have any form of power. You cannot tell anyone to move this or move that. You don't have any form of directive power because you are not elected under the Constitution to have any form of those type of power. So neighbor, I don't see the reason for this guy running down to want to be a part of this thing certain way to a certain level. I don't know what level he keeps talking about being a part of NARA, being a part of this. I just can't understand it, neighbor. What is his issue? And you just need to understand, neighbor, that there's nothing that said that the Prime Minister must or should include the opposition as part of whatever recovery process. All protocol stands as to how they were in terms of the opposition, neighbor, going forward, as long as it's within the institution, and it is. So there's no more need to be added, neighbor. Nothing more need to be added.
Then he went on to say this.
Archie remarks. All I can say is, Prime Minister, the opposition represents some 400,000 voters who voted for us, 28 constituencies, and our presence in the recovery and our participation in the recovery, you'll be well advised to seek in a genuine...
You'll be well advised to seek it because we have 400,000 people who voted for it. What do you think of that?
That's the threat that the Prime Minister is talking about, neighbor. That's one of the statements that's so threatful that the Prime Minister made mention about. How the opposition leader speak and how we come across. And again, neighbor, a very misunfortunate speech from the opposition talking about he's responsible for 400,000 persons who voted for him. As the opposition leader, you represent Jamaica, that's the constitution say. And I don't think that our office like the opposition neighbor, which is a part of our constitution, will be set up to only defend a certain section or a certain amount of our population. So again, the opposition leader heard their neighbor.
Mr. Golden is a sensible man. Is Mr. Golden not aware of that? Why would he keep saying this? Because he constantly repeats it that he represents 400,000 people in Jamaica. The elections aren't over, Scratchy.
Yes, neighbor, and the point of sensible, yes, neighbor, we have seen a lot of persons tend to show themselves to be sensible, neighbor. When I see these persons in front of the parliament, in the parliament, especially, neighbor, there's a total different level of sense. You see these persons to be wanting for that level of understanding of how the parliament operates. And Mr. Golden, neighbor, has tarnished his career so much since he has become the leader of the opposition. Neighbor. I can definitely tell you that, neighbor. This guy personal career has tarnished so much.
He has tarnished his career?
Yes, neighbor, definitely, neighbor. I thought a lot of persons who knew Mr. Golden personally, neighbor, from the private sector, neighbor, I think a lot of them are shocked and astonished, neighbor, to the type of style and behavior that is coming from this guy right now, neighbor. I think definitely, neighbor, his reputation has taken a hit, neighbor.
Yeah, but I don't like this talk, Scratchy. I'm trying to figure out why is this necessary? Why is it necessary to tell the Prime Minister that I have 400,000 people here and 28 seats, so you would be well advised to include me? Can't do that, Scratchy. Can't do that.
Definitely, you can't do that, neighbor. Again, that's a threat he's sending there, neighbor, to the Prime Minister. That's the Prime Minister letting him know that we won't be stand by taking it from a threat. Again, neighbor, this opposition leader, neighbor, one of the worst opposition leader, especially from the PNP side that we have seen, neighbor, probably in the history, neighbor. This guy don't understand. I don't know what playbook he's going by, neighbor. He opposed every single thing, neighbor. This guy has never given the government any form of accommodation or any form of respect for nothing that has been done, neighbor. We saw where we have a reduction in property and this guy tried to spew it a different way. We saw where the reduction in crime, he's saying he's only going to congratulate the police force and not the government. But when crime was high, he blamed the government. So, neighbor, this guy is just a confused guy, neighbor. And I like how he's proving himself, neighbor. And as someone who class himself to be a Tapanaris, neighbor, a lot of his Tapanaris fellows, neighbor, are saddened by his...
He has classed himself as a what?
A Tapanaris.
A Tapanaris.
Yes, this guy class himself and goes by the mantra of being a Tapanaris, neighbor. And I'm saying that a lot of these Tapanaris.
He said he's a Tapanaris, sir?
Yes, that's how he styled himself to be, the Tapanaris.
Wow.
He and his Tapanaris friends. He speak highly about he and his Tapanaris friends.
But Tapanaris are big shots.
Big shots, neighbor. Big shots. And this is why you see this guy's type is portraying the style that he's coming with, neighbor. You think that because he's a big shot, he can just come and take over our country and take over our parliament.
Did Mr. Golden really say that, so he's a Tapanaris?
Yes, he said that he and his Tapanaris friends, neighbor. So once he said that he and his Tapanaris friend, in that case, neighbor, in that context, I think he's referring to himself as a Tapanaris.
Wow. This is a Tapanaris leader.
Tapanaris leader, neighbor. A Tapanaris leader, neighbor, with a party that suffers from majority of the persons who are in poverty, majority of the persons who can't read, majority of the persons who continue to make ill decisions and rude decisions, neighbor. Support that party. So I don't understand, neighbor. That's why you cannot connect neighbor. There's a disparity between the leadership of the People's National Party and its core supporters. And it's the first in the history neighbor, the People's National Party has ever produced a leader neighbor who cannot connect with the base or the core of his supporters. He cannot go down to the 11 neighbor. He's not used to that lifestyle.
He's a top and Harris.
Top on Harris neighbor.
Wow.
This guy go to school with chauffeur driven in the neighbor and have chauffeur and have help and these type of things neighbor. That's how these guys grow in the neighbor.
Yes.
That's why you find that he can't relate with majority of the population.
I wonder if that's why he's not showing as much respect for the Prime Minister. But the Prime Minister is not a top and Harris, so.
Definitely neighbor. Someone of the opposition leader caliber neighbor doesn't feel or doesn't think that someone like the Prime Minister who come from a humble beginning neighbor should be in a firm or some form of authority over him. So, you know, he's going to always try to prove that neighbor based on his social status. Based on his social status, he's bigger than the Prime Minister. But he doesn't understand that in the Parliament, it's not about social status, neighbor. It's the people put you there. And the Prime Minister is the Prime Minister. And you have to respect that office. And we don't care who you is or who you are, how much money you have. That don't matter in the Parliament.
I didn't realize that. I need to look at this top and Harris thing again. That's a bit of elitism and maybe classism at play here too. Anyway,
Definitely, neighbor. Classism at its highest level, neighbor. That's why I see the Prime Minister is coming under the attack that is coming under, neighbor. You look at the type of persons who are against the Prime Minister, neighbor. Are persons who come from the upper echelon of society.
Wow. The top and Harris people.
The top and Harris people, neighbor, they are the one, neighbor. They don't believe that persons who come from these humble beginnings, neighbor, should hold this type of authority and this type of power. That's why one of the main things I am happy that the Prime Minister went back to school, neighbor, and gained a doctorate while being the Prime Minister, neighbor. So that only thing now they can come and talk to him about education.
Oh.
They can't come and talk to him now about education because that's what they want to try to use against him, so he might not only stop at a degree level. So I'm happy that the Prime Minister went and further himself neighbor and got his doctorate while being the Prime Minister. So they do have certain things to come to him at an educational standpoint now. You only try can attack him based on his humble beginning. And none of us have control over where or how we were born, neighbor.
That is true. That is true. Fantastic scratch off for us, Scratchy. But I think the top and Harris thing there is a fascinating thing. Hold on there, Scratch.
Oh gosh.
Top and Harris, I tell you.